Welcome to Beyond Love and Light podcast, where we bypass the fluff, lift the veil, and explore how to navigate the human experience as a spiritual being. I am Laura Gavander, a transformation coach, psyche, and emotion code facilitator. Join me as we delve into topics relating to human consciousness, alternative healing modalities, quantum physics, and the psychology of spirituality. I bring you insights and information from amazing guests and my own experience and observations. Please remember to subscribe to get notifications. And if you'd like to know more about me and my work, please go to my website, www.lauragavander.com. So let's get on with the podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Beyond Love and Light podcast. I am so excited for my guest today. My guest is Sarah McCrum. She is a leading money consciousness coach, and she is the author of this fabulous book called Love Money, Money Loves You. I'll show you the whole. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you, Laura.
Sarah's all the way in Australia. Reason why I was so excited. First of all, the way I found you was really interesting because you know how something will just appear in your YouTube feed and you have no idea how it got there, and it's like an accident. And for those listening, I'm doing air quotes because of course there's no accident. And you were interviewed by somebody, I don't remember who it was a few years ago, and I listened to it and I just said, wow. First of all, I loved how you just spoke about how this whole thing came to you, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but I had to get the book. I read the book, and then of course I reached out because I thought, as we were just saying, this information is so important. And I think so many people struggle with money, and to just get the word out to people that it can be different was really, really
Yep.
important.
Well, thank you. Yes, I do really feel it's important because the more I go along with it, the more people I teach, the more changes I see. It makes me realize how much pain our relationship with money has caused us, actually, often not even fully admitting it or recognizing it. It's just like we're used to the grinding conflict inside us. And that's not a good way.
Right.
It's not a good way to live. It's not a healthy relationship with money. And when I see people relax into it and discover what it can be, it's just such a pleasure. It's a pleasure for them. It's a pleasure for me. So I'm really grateful to you for sharing the book with your friends and introducing me to your audience, because it's part of that, helping, just reaching out to other people saying, hey, it doesn't have to be like this.
Right. Right. And this was very different. I've read a lot of money books, and I coach people with money issues all the time. And what's really different, I mean, there's a lot of things that are different about this book, but so much of it is based on past programming, and it's all fear-based, and you have to do certain things to get money. And this book really focused on the energy of money and the relationship with money. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about sort of like the two-way street with the relationship with money.
I think, can I say a little bit how I got
Yes,
this
yes,
information?
yes, yes.
Because otherwise it
How
makes
did
me
this come
look
to you?
like a kind
Yes.
of a strangely false expert. So what actually happened was, back in 2010, I had a business failure, which is a fairly traumatic experience. It's very, very unpleasant when that happens. And a few weeks after that, I was kind of wondering what on earth to do with my life. And I had no money. I couldn't pay my rent. I had nothing to do. It was, a difficult time. And I found myself writing a message in my little notebook from money. It was like money was talking through my pen. And it had come because I'd read a little book that it had a question in it. It said, what does money want to say to you? Which is not a very common kind of question. But it turned out that money really wanted to say something to me. And the first thing it said to me is, I want you to love me. And that was like, what? Because we tend to think that loving money is not really okay, even. So just a surprise, I wrote a couple of pages, this incredibly beautiful message from money, and it finished these 2 pages by saying, don't wait, just take me, I will love you. And in between it explained that it's an energy, it's very powerful and beautiful. We can do whatever we want with it. It's really here for us. And that it connects us together in our creativity. It's when we contribute to other people that we receive money. So It creates a kind of connection between human beings. So I was presented with this radically different view of money. And I went on to write every day. Every day, I just wrote another message from money. It just seemed to have a lot that it wanted to share with me. And that's what turned into my book, Love Money, Money Loves You. So this two-way street that you're talking about really comes from that very first communication. And the way it described itself, it's like an energy that is really here to serve human beings, literally. So it responds to, it's kind of like it's listening to and responding to all our thoughts and feelings that invoke anything actually around really manifestation. It's really the energy of manifestation. So money is kind of a subset of that. So when we feel things like, I really want to experience this thing, I really want to experience, I want to go to, I don't know, tropical island, or I really want to invest in my business so that I can do more with it. You know, there are so many things we want. It hears that as if it's a sincere wish from your soul and your heart, it hears it. And it's an energy that kind of in the invisible world moves things around to enable us to have the experience that we're looking for. The tough part about it is that it hears all our other thoughts as well. So it hears our thoughts like, oh, I really want that, but I'm never going to be it. You know, I'm never going to be able to do that. And it's very interesting. It really is a two-way street. It has to respond very precisely to us. So if we say, I want it, but I can't have it, it has to kind of deliver you this feeling of wanting something and not being able to have it. And so it's almost like it sticks in us. We go round and round in circles over and over again, year after year, saying, I really want to go somewhere, I really want to travel, but people like me never make enough money. And so it has to kind of keep you there, not making enough money, not able to travel, but still wanting to, which is very funny. So it's actually an incredibly responsive energy. Like, it's almost like it's a part of us, but it has a power outside of us as well. It has the power to change things for us. And when we understand this, we get this sense of a partnership with it. It's like, it's just how amazing that there's an energy like that we can't see, but really becomes more alive when you get to know it. And then when we learn how to have a good relationship with it, just like having a good relationship with a partner, everything flows much better. And that's what really all of this is about. That's what my work is about.
This is so the reason why I think this was just like, oh my God, like it's really, it shakes people up when they read this and they get into it, because this is so different than what we've been taught. And when you were talking about how people think, anytime you say, I want something, I need something, you are actually affirming that you don't have it. And that's the energy that is picked up, right? So you get more of the
Well,
same.
it depends a little bit, actually. People often say that, and many people teach that in the manifestation world, but actually this energy of money is very sophisticated.
Mhm.
So if you say, I want that, and it's just an open-hearted, I really want that coat. I remember just after I'd written just when I was writing the beginning of the book, I'd seen a bright red coat in a shop in London, and I just really wanted it. And that was an open-hearted desire. It wasn't like, oh, I want it, but I haven't got it. It was, I want that.
Right.
That energy is very open. Any desire or wish that comes from your soul, also, it can be something that you need. But if you speak about it in a needy way, like, oh, I really need this, you can feel it's like desperate. The book actually says, I can't meet that desperation. The money cannot flow into the hands of people who are desperate. It's not because they're desperate, it's because they're not open. They
Right.
close themselves down. So if you're desperate, you actually need to find the way to open up and receive. Don't close down in kind of fear of life, but open and find the way. We have to practice it. I've been desperate and I've had to do it in really desperate situations. And that's how I proved that it worked.
Mm. Yeah, and I think it's kind of like you said, it's what comes after. It's like, I want this, but I can't afford it. I want
Yeah,
this, but I have other things, right? So it's like, it's the what that comes after it that actually
yeah,
prevents it from coming to you. So it's
that's right.
this fluid, almost like playful energy that I think money wants us to have with it. It wants us to have fun. It wants us to enjoy. And that was the thing that was so apparent in the beginning of the book, just reading. And I'll post actually the beautiful the link to because you do have the statement with the music.
The video with the
Yeah, the
music.
video,
Yeah,
which I
yeah,
think
it's very
is really
beautiful.
powerful for people to hear the whole message. But the most important thing I think I got from this was to just be joyful and think of money in a very different way instead of, oh, it's not good to want money or it's not good to ask for it. And it's funny. I mentioned before we started that I've been playing with there's kind of a concept in here, certainly about the way you ask for money and to just ask for it and be very simple and very specific and give a deadline, which seems completely ridiculous, right? Because like, why should it show up? And I've been playing with, and I have to tell you, for a couple of weeks, it's come exactly. And what's amazing is that it's in ways that I never would have imagined, or not from the sources that I would have imagined. I think that's also a very, very important message is that, and there is one, I think one of the, there's something you say in here about forget how, if you're trying to manifest, create money, forget the
Forget
usual
everything you've learned
sources.
about money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, forget everything you learned about money, but also put your resources aside, like the things that the way it may come to you, because that's also very limiting.
Yes, and like this is really interesting. I think it's very interesting also for people who are in business, because fundamentally what we find when we start to experiment with this is that there are many ways that money can come in beyond what you can think of. And at the same time, when you're doing business, it doesn't mean that you need to float around like a fairy manifesting wishes and never focus on your business. It's how do we bring that together? Because in business, we have to be quite focused. We have a direction, we're doing certain things and we don't do other things. But how do we stay open at the same time for all the possibilities that I just don't know about, you don't know about, it doesn't mean nobody else knows about. And so I've literally experienced things like, I'll tell you one tiny example. In the early days when I was pretty desperate, and I needed an extra $200 to pay the rent that day. It was due that day. And I had a client coming, she was going to pay me $200. I thought, okay, I'm okay for this week. I was living really from rent to rent at that time. And then she canceled at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I remember I just said, okay, it's going to be all right. I didn't let myself go into closing down, panicking, stressing. It's like, it's going to be all right. And within an hour, somebody had completely by surprise booked a $200 session that was going to be paid that day. And, we hear these stories all the time. I think what the book does is show you how those stories work so that it helps to give you this trust that it's really worth experimenting with. Even if you've tried and failed, like I've had lots of failures, but the more I go, the more I find that it really is like a partnership. Like you can have a good partnership and have horrible days and horrible arguments and go through all kinds of ups and downs. It's not like a partner is not a machine. Money is not a machine. It's not a robot. It's a living relationship. So when we can learn to flow with the dynamics of our relationship, then we start to get into the right space to be able to have a better relationship and therefore better results.
I'm really curious what your beliefs and your relationship with money was like prior to this.
Well, I grew up in a British middle-class family. It was very, very normal then that you just did not talk about money. You didn't talk about money, politics, sex, or religion in public or also in the family. It was just never really discussed. The only thing that I think that you do these exercises sometimes where people say, well, what were the messages that you learned about money when you were young? Because we didn't talk about it, I didn't learn a lot actually. But there was a time when my dad was unemployed. It was for like a 6-month period or something. And I remember him taking it as a huge adventure. And so he learned how to make wine and how to make beer and all these things that he would, before he was just buying things like that. He was very adventurous in that way. And what I learned from that is that it's very adventurous to have no money. Like it gets kind of more exciting when you're broke. And that wasn't a very good message, actually. The adventure was appealing and that kind of positive attitude was good. But I realized that I often resorted to pretty much running out of money so that I could switch myself on. And I hadn't realized that at all. But the biggest thing for me was, I had run businesses trying to ignore the money because we don't talk about it. I wasn't interested in it. I'm not driven by money. To this day, I'm not driven by money. I'm a purpose person. Um, but it took me a long time to learn how to really pay attention to money, because like a partner, if you take them for granted, you just don't get such a good quality of experience together. It doesn't work very well.
Right.
So, that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, because I was really curious. I thought, well, there's a reason why money chose you to bring this
Well,
message out.
I mean, it's funny. It was very funny for me. I've often wondered about that. I do remember once, this is a bit of a strange story in a way, but it connected up for me. I was in China. I trained for a very long time with Chinese masters. So I have a very strong background in energy. And that is probably part of the context. I'd learned a lot about energy. And our Chinese master took us to see another Chinese master. She was a Buddhist master, and she said that she had this kind of angel in her stomach. She was kind of like a channel for this angel. It was a very extraordinary experience. And they had these three-way conversations with this angel. That was really, my teacher and this other teacher and the angel. She was like ventriloquizing for the angel. A beautiful experience. And I remember one morning saying, I want to have my own angel. But I didn't think that I would become the voice, so to speak, the ventriloquist for money. I didn't think of money as an angel. And it's really interesting because it changed my life path. It really has become my path to be working on money and well-being and true wealth and a well-being economy. Everything connects around money. So I guess I had to reach a certain level of maturity and desire for my own purpose, in a way, to be able to attract that experience into me that then kind of coalesced everything gradually. It's been a gradual process, but everything has coalesced around really the message of the book.
That's so beautiful. And then you're serving so many people who struggle with this. I mean, I see it all the time, and it's just so beautiful to have just another way of looking at this. The book talks about debt in a very interesting way. And since so many people deal with this, and it talks about the imbalance, I'd love for you to just share a little bit about what the imbalance is created by having debt.
Yeah, debt's very interesting. So it's not that there's something wrong with debt. I think there are times when debt is an appropriate thing. But fundamentally, when you borrow from somebody else, you're actually borrowing their energy. Through their energy, they've created that store of money. It matches their energy. You're needing to borrow because you don't have that energy yet. So they're being very generous to you, actually, in lending you that money. Now, I know there are people thinking, well, what about the bank and what about mortgages and things? And yeah, there's all kinds of difficult stuff that happens around money. But I think we need to understand the fundamental principle first, which is when you borrow money, you're borrowing some energy from somebody else. And I feel that that needs to be really respected. And the book money is very clear about that. So
Mm.
it doesn't say don't go into debt. What it says is if you take on any debt, make sure you do it knowing that you're going to be able to repay it. I think the big problem we have these days is we take on debt because we can't repay it almost. We take it on in this kind of blind, I just want that thing. And, I should have it because why? Because you haven't got the energy for it yet, actually. So you get a credit card or whatever. People don't take real responsibility around their debts, and then they get into trouble. But if you have, a system, if you have a business or you have a way of being able to systematically pay your debt, or you're making enough money and you do it responsibly and you really honor the energy that's being lent to you here, then I think that is, there are times when that's a fine thing to do. It's a way also that we can help each other.
Mm.
But we do really need to understand the energy that's going on there.
Yeah, and it was a little like, I don't know, there was, because I mean, most of us at some point have been in debt in some one way or another. And there was something that was a little like, oof. And that was talking about that, like, it doesn't just go away. Like, if someone lent you money or in the past, like, it's going to seek to balance it out some way.
And
And
that will happen over lifetimes. Like if you don't do that this lifetime, that's what I've come to realize. You know how you sometimes, there's somebody and it seems like it's almost like you have to, so I don't know, you have to pay them things and it doesn't feel like a fair exchange. I don't know if that's happened to you, but it certainly happens to some people. It's like, why do I keep having to pay money to this person? And it turns out that you actually owe it from another lifetime and you never really sorted it out. And I've also found the other thing that the book is quite clear about, and I'm very clear about this now, is that if you have a business failure, we call it, or your business closes and you're not able to pay all your bills, which that happens. That happened at that time when I wrote the book. That's what had just happened. All of those debts hold in some way until they get balanced out again.
yeah,
So
that was a little
the never
cringy.
forgets anything. But the thing I've discovered is it's not necessarily that you then have to go and seek out all of those people. Of course, if you can repay your debts now and just sort it out, that's great. But sometimes, like what I see over the lifetime cycle is that those people will just be brought into your life. It's happening in this lifetime. People have been brought into your life where there was something you needed to sort out. And that will continue. So I don't think we need to use this to freak ourselves out. It's really an invitation to take more responsibility.
The theme that I kept seeing throughout the book was stop worrying. Don't worry. Don't have fear. Like, relax. And it was like so reassuring that even though it was kind of like, don't even look at your current situation. Like, don't say, because then it's going to seem very overwhelming. And well, how is this going to happen? So you kind of have to really sort of suspend, not necessarily reality, but just really have trust and really just know that if you actually lighten up about it, that's when things work itself out and that's when things will come to you. And you really see that as being the theme in the book, is that
Oh, yeah.
worrying is going to just block it.
Worry and stress are really killers, actually, of any relationship.
Hmm.
If you think about it, put it in the relationship context again. If you worry and are stressed about your relationship with another human being all the time, what does that do to them? It just pushes them away.
Right.
It's so unpleasant to be around that energy. But the other thing is when you're worried and stressed, you're closed. So it's very difficult to receive. It's very difficult to receive the energy of money and the physical reality of money as well. Whereas, people sometimes say to me, well, how can I not be worried or how can I relax if I don't have enough money to pay my bills? The honest truth is, if you don't have enough money to pay your bills at the moment, you don't have enough money to pay your bills. That's just what's happening right now. Won't be forever, but right now that's where you are. So can you actually just say, well, that's what's true. I'm going to relax instead of being stressed. Like, being stressed doesn't make you find solutions. It makes you rush around in your head and think about things. Being relaxed actually makes it easier to ask yourself, okay, what could I do now to make more money or to find more money? How can I solve this? When I say, how can I solve this? I'm open, I'm curious. And people help me more. This is just a principle of life. People help you more when you're open and curious and receptive. It's like, oh no, I don't need any help. I'm far too embarrassed for you to see what's going on in my financial life, rather than, oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's really helpful for me. I really need it right now. Thank you. Such a different way of being. And the energy of money responds just the same. When we're open, receptive, also clear, we must be clear what we're asking for. So people will sometimes say, oh, please, money, I want some more money. But, oh, suppose how's money supposed to respond to that? You want 1 cent? You probably already got that. It's like we need some clarity in
Right.
what we want. I think a lot of us have learned to be very afraid of asking for what we want.
So when people need money, and I'm saying need, like you
Yeah.
said in your situation, how can they, what should they do? What should they do when they need money?
So the first thing is to be really clear about what you actually need. Because when you really need it, you need to sort that bit out first. So don't worry about the big mansion you'd love to live in the future. If you need $200 to pay your rent, or you need $5,000 to do this thing that is really important for you, get really clear about the money itself. Make sure you know what you need. It's really important to relax. I would say before asking or really doing anything, get yourself into a relaxed state. All the courses I teach, the first month is really just teaching people to relax. Because when you're relaxed, you can then kind of activate the system. What I do is I just say to money, please, please give me $200, or please pay my rent. But I find it better to ask it to pay the rent. It'll usually give me the $200, so to speak. But I say, please pay my rent, or please get me this course. That's how I used to do it. That when I started, it was rent, it was buying a course. It was just the things that could move me forward. That's what I learned. Some people need to do it with more enthusiasm. For me, the more enthusiasm I bring, the more I push it away. The more completely like take it or leave it, it's just like that. And then I forget about it, the better. Some people need to really generate some warmth and enthusiasm. I have done things where I sat down and kind of relaxed myself into a really beautiful state. At the beginning, it's just like $300. I was desperate. $300. During that time, I just got myself to feel really warm and good. Not about the $300. I didn't focus on it, just in myself. And during the meditation, I got a phone call where somebody said, I want to buy your fridge, which we'd just put on a website for $300. And he said, I'm bringing cash. Normally people negotiate and all that. He didn't. He just walked in, took the fridge, gave me the $300. About 2 hours later. Look, I think it's really important to say, because we tell these stories, I've also tried things and not been in the good mood and it hasn't worked, but I've always found a solution. I've always found a solution in the end. So sometimes being desperate or needy, what I found is what taught me the disciplines and the skills to be able to go to the next level.
So I have to add that when I was playing around with it, I was playing. So I knew I had certain money coming in from certain sources. And I said, I want this amount of money by this date, above and beyond this, above and beyond this, and above and beyond this. So meaning I already knew this was coming in. So that's not going to count. I was very specific.
That's very, very clear. And it looks to me like you were pretty easygoing about it. You weren't, because people often do that experiment and they're demanding, they're kind of like pushy with money.
Oh no, I was just
you weren't like
clear.
that.
I said I knew this was coming in, so that's not going to count. That's cheating on your part, money. So I know this is coming in. It's not that, it's not this, and that's not this. But I want this above and beyond. And it came in like a few days.
Yeah.
Now I know I just have to ask for more. Because
yes, and I find we need to build our muscle, so to speak. Because I watch people, sometimes they ask for something that they can't really connect with, and then it doesn't work.
Right.
Sometimes they ask for things that it's like, oh, I just want this. I find whenever I hear that word just, that doesn't really light the money system up.
Right.
It's almost like, oh, it's got a little bit of that, I'm a miserable creature, I shouldn't ask for too much energy in it, and that doesn't work very well. I think we need to find our own signature. That's where the play and the experimentation comes in. What works for you. And if you're in business, because I think it's, as a business person, I've also had to learn how to deal with it, not just in a playful way, but because I've got some salary to pay at the end of the week. Sometimes, there's pressure on things like that. And how do I make sure? And sometimes that means I need to write an email, I need to sell something. There are things I can do now as a business person that I couldn't do when I started, because at that time I was starting a business and I had no clients. So I was literally having to do it from nothing. As I've grown my business, of course, you do everything you can in your business first. But if all of that fails, you have another recourse, which is just to go directly to money and say, please sort this out for me. It's like, I've done everything I can. I can't do any more. Please help me. And it's quite amazing.
It is. It really is. So what happens if people have money blocks? They inside they don't believe they deserve something, or they're told you can't do that unless you do it this way, or there's lots of blocks people have about their many maybe how much they can earn or how much they're worth. And it's pretty common. So what happens when there are these maybe subconscious blocks that they're not even aware of? Is this still gonna be as
Well,
effective?
I think we need to understand, first of all, what those blocks are, because then we can see really how to work with that in this relationship with money. So, those blocks are old things that we've learned fundamentally. Maybe we picked them up very subconsciously. Sometimes we can remember, we've been through situations. Maybe you've been through, a somewhat abusive financial situation, and you've developed a lot of fear that also can create a block. You've had some traumatic experiences around money. But fundamentally, these are all what I call old energy. Okay, so they're all from the past. They're not really relevant now. It's not relevant to be afraid of money, just because your father was afraid of money, for example, or stressed about money because your mother was always stressed about money. But we've learned it. So when you can understand that it's old energy, this is one of the reasons why I teach people to relax, because when you relax, you receive new energy, and that literally releases the old energy. One of the things I've found, a lot of people they come along and they say, well, I want to deal with all my blocks about money. Or they say, I've been dealing with my blocks about money for ages, but they keep producing more of them. And I found that if we focus too much on blocks, we actually create them in a way. It's like our energy is going towards finding blockages. There's always another one. There's always, and look, my money capacity 5 years ago is now a block to me for the financial capacity I have and I'm trying to create now. So I'm now having to release that. And my 2 years ago capacity as well. So we always have old energy, we always have new energy. And in a healthy system, we're letting go of the old energy on time. Really, a block is old energy that's got held onto for too long. It's just a sort of unhealthy system. So my first principle in this is always to learn how to relax, receive fresh energy, and let the fresh energy release the blocks, because the energy knows what you need. Like, we don't really know exactly what we need, but the energy knows exactly what you need, and it releases those blockages in the right order for you. So that's a very helpful thing. The only blockages that I find you can't deal with through relaxation or meditation or things like that are where you get triggered by somebody else. You can relax about it and feel better, but very often the trigger stays, the emotional charge stays. So I actually teach people a special process, because when we're triggered by somebody else, it's actually always something about ourselves. And we never really want to admit that. So I teach people a process that enables them to see how they're doing that to themselves. That horrible thing that someone has just done to you that is triggering you, you actually do that to you. Once you can go through a process to unravel those triggers, so those are blocks, if you like, they are very old, usually very suppressed energy that you're not conscious of. Those are completely released, like you experience complete peace in that, and it doesn't recur then. So I find two different types. There's the types that just we let go of little by little. And there's one other piece in here that's important. If you have no financial ambition, so to speak, there's nothing that you really want in your life, then you can manage with the blocks you've got, quite honestly. It's like, you might as well just keep them because it's working fine for you. So if you want something more, then you're going to meet those blocks, that old energy, because you cannot be more while you stay the same. Because the most natural process in the world of growing means you need to let go of who you were before. And if you're growing financially, you need to let go of some of who you were before financially, including the little girl and the little boy, and all those memories that you have. Of course, we have to let that go because we want to become more than we are. I feel that it helps to understand the energetics of it,
Right.
because then we know what we need to do about it.
Right. And so much of it comes from our early programming. Like if you grew up in a home with lack, then that's going to be very pervasive in your life. So much of this is really examining what your beliefs are because it's going to play out. So you can play with, you can have a conversation with money in the morning, and you can have a conversation with money later in the day and say, this is what I would like. But in between the day, you're going to have thoughts of lack because that's what's programmed. That's really, I see it as the biggest challenge with this work is really, it's like, it's monitoring your energy, not just when you're having this conversation with money, but actually throughout your entire day. You have to, it's
Totally.
a mindset shift between the lack, or there's never enough, or I have to do this and that, or I'm going to have to give up something, to it's infinite. I mean, that's another message in the book, is that there's an infinite supply. There is no shortage.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting is there are really different shades of that lack. There are people who grew up with there was never enough, and who often it's difficult to even open to the possibility that it could be different from that. There are others who are driven to make money because they don't ever want to repeat that experience. So it's not inevitable, but they will still probably experience many feelings of not enough. There are many very wealthy people who feel that whatever they do is not enough. Very successful people, whatever they do is not enough. So this not enoughness, I think, is so deep. I think that comes from religion, in a very powerful way, because so often you're made to feel like, you're not really enough for God, even though God loves you and God is everything and all of that. Somehow you're always made to feel small. And there's lots of financial stuff around that. I think our consumerist culture is promoting to us all the time that you are not enough and your life is not enough unless you have this dream experience. So we're so immersed in that. The thing about growing up in poverty is that you don't even know that you have those thoughts most of the time. So I think your point, Laura, is really important, is that although we can talk about these almost miraculous things that happen, the real work of transforming your relationship with money is the work of consciousness.
Mhm.
You need to become more aware of your relationship with money, your thoughts about it, your feelings about it, your actions around it. Are you really showing up fully in that relationship? Are you showing up with your energy, your enthusiasm, your love for yourself and your life? Or are you treating it like, I'm always afraid of being hurt? I'm
Mm.
always afraid that I'm going to be the loser. Because even if that fear is there, even if it's based on something real, that's in the past. And is it possible that you could possibly have a different experience now? Just a little bit,
Mhm.
just a little bit more, there's a little bit more. And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah, it's a process. It's a process,
It's a
isn't it?
process.
It's an evolution, yeah.
I have to deal with all this stuff just like everybody else does. I've just been doing it for longer. I have a lot of tools and skills. And so the minute I'm triggered by somebody, or the minute somebody does something really bad to me, or the minute I find myself, restricting, if I notice it, I do something. But I can go for months in a situation not realizing yet what's going on because it's not conscious to me yet. It's
Right.
kind of like rising slowly, slowly. And then I start to feel frustrated by, what is it? I don't know what it is. And then I get more frustrated. And at a certain point, it's like, oh, that's what we're dealing with. And then I can do something.
Mm. Yeah, it rises up to finally get your attention.
Yeah.
So there's a concept in the book called the vibrational bank account, the VBA, or the virtual vibrational bank account. What is that? And why is it important?
Well, funnily enough, about 6 months after I wrote the main book, I just got this question in my mind. What is the new currency? I don't, I didn't really understand what I was asking. Like, it didn't mean anything to me at that time. It's a long time ago now, 12 years ago, more. And I just started writing these messages from when I said, what's the new currency? And so it delivered me about 5 chapters about the new currency, and it introduced this vibrational bank account. And what it was saying is really that energy is currency. money is a limited representation of that currency of life, if you like, the flow of life, the flow of contribution. And it showed that we could see our life rather like a bank account. And it's a bit of a crude model, but it's actually really helpful. When we are relaxed and enjoying, as we've been talking about, you can actually feel it. You're supplying sweet energy to the universe.
Mm.
Now, there's a lot of life in the universe that we don't know about. They love that sweet energy. They feed on that. That's really wonderful for them. When you're really stressed and tense, you feed a kind of bitter energy, if you like. And we know that. We can feel that inside ourselves. You don't want to be like that. You're just like that. So that kind of sweet energy that comes from being relaxed, enjoying, and also doing good things, but doing good things in that nice, comfortable, at one with yourself space, that builds credit in your virtual bank account or vibrational bank account. When you're harming yourself through the thoughts and feelings of like, I hate myself, I'm no good, I'm stupid, I'm too fat, I'm never going to make any money, all these silly thoughts we have, you're harming yourself, or you're harming other people, sometimes maybe by limiting them or controlling them or just being mean, like we can be when we get in a bad mood. That's like a debt account. You actually build debt in that account. And it is interesting because life itself will not actually let you create unlimited debt, just like a bank. It will draw a line at some point. But effectively, you can create unlimited credit. I mean, you can keep building your credit. What's important about this is that if you want to manifest something, you're actually drawing down on your credit. So some people, they want to manifest something. Let's say they need a lot of money for something quickly, or they're in some disaster situation, they need some emergency help, and it just happens like that. And it's kind of explaining that they've built up a lot of credit. Sometimes we've just had a really rough time in life and we don't have a lot of credit like that, so we have to learn how to build it up. There's no judgment in the situation whatsoever, or in the system. Money has no judgment. The energy has no judgment. But we do have to be real. So I was a person who, in past lifetimes, actually have created a lot of debt, a lot of karma. I've done a lot of harm to a lot of people, and I've had to make good on that this lifetime. I've actually had to sort that out. There's a lot of work, and little by little, I started to be able to build credit. I used to find it very hard to get those magical results that other people got. And it was painful for me to be, always the one who, I felt like I was very intelligent at school, and I was very kind of slow and rather dumb in energy. I was very persistent because all these people were like sparkling, oh, amazing miracle, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I can't even enjoy myself. I felt it took me years and years to learn it. But I think that's the point, is it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you are in life. It doesn't matter what the reason for that is. From here, you can start to build up some credit. And it is possible to have credit and debt at the same time, like with a bank account. And you can also use some credit to sort out the debt. We can play around with that. So it's a bit crude in a way, and if you take it as a judgmental system or a punishment system, you will completely misunderstand what this is about.
Right.
But it's a beautiful system, actually. It's very beautiful, powerful.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is that obviously this is very spiritual. Money is spiritual, money's energy. And yet it was for so long, it's been seen like you're either spiritual or you go after money. Like the two of them, look how many people would be afraid to charge for their services, or you shouldn't have to. And it's so ironic because that's what money is. It is just energy. It is spiritually based. And that, I think that's shifting. I really think that is finally shifting.
And the soul loves to experience abundance, which is
Mhm.
not actually having masses of money in your bank account.
Right.
It's having very rich experiences in your life. Rich for you which might be something very simple, sitting beside a lake. But how did you get to the lake? If you live in a city and you want to sit by a lake, you might need to take some transport or drive a car. How did you get the car? you know, all of these things, if we want to have rich experiences, we don't have to spend a fortune. It's not about everyone has to be the same rich, because rich is different for each one of us. We need to find our own richness or wealth of life. But in our society, we do have this beautiful system, because we can't feel rich if we don't contribute to other people. You just don't feel that wealth
Yeah.
if you don't give to anybody else. So money is a way that enables us to do that, an
Mhm.
exchange, which is part of our wealth. And then that enables us to create experiences for ourselves and our families and other people. And they do require money, and it enables us to live in a way that suits my soul and my heart and my body and my life, whatever it is that I'm doing while I'm here.
Hmm. Wonderful. So before we wrap up, what is there any message money would like to tell us that we maybe haven't covered?
I'm going to have to consult with money for that one.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
It's all right. No, it's fine. It's because it's saying, well, we've actually covered a lot. It's feeling fairly pleased with us, I think. But yeah. So what it really wants to say is that, let's try to find like how to express it really clearly. A lot of us are caught up in a lot of negative thoughts about money, not just only about our own situation, but about the the global situation and what's been done with money in the past. And we can get very hooked up on that, so that even when you start to have a better relationship with money, you're bothered, you're disturbed by the bad things that get done with money. Money being used for manipulation and abuse of power and control and military and all kinds of things. We know this stuff. What money is saying is that what it's introducing us to is an evolution in our relationship with money. So, whilst the fundamental principles have been around for a long time, our world is changing. So, it's saying don't get hung up on all of that stuff, because that was the best we could do so far, and it's overstretched itself now. If you really want to do something about this, then learn how to have a relationship with money, or explore how to have a relationship with money that we're talking about, that actually generates well-being for you and other people, and grow more of that and share more of that with your friends, because that will be more powerful than focusing on what's wrong with the system today. The
Hmm.
system today was created from the energy of the past. If you want a better future, you create that now.
Beautiful. Wow.
Thank you, Money.
Do you have any courses? Anything do you want to let people know about, and where can they reach you?
Well, the place to reach me is my website, which is sarahmccrum.com. You can, from there, download the first 4 chapters of the book free if you want. Obviously, the book Love Money, Money Loves You is the place to start. And from there, we run courses. We run courses for people who are struggling somewhat with money. We also have a course that's about creating true wealth, and a course that's about creating true well-being. So everything I've talked about is there. It's all on my website. So that's the easiest place to go.
Get
And the
the
book.
book. I'm telling you, get the book.
Yeah.
It's really, there's so much more in it than we were obviously able to cover. Like there's so many, I've had so much of it highlighted, and you know what, honestly, it's the kind of book I knew I was going to read it through, and then I knew I was going to go back and read it again. It's that, right? There's just so much in it and it makes you think, and it's really, so thank you so much for writing this book. It's really, really important and really wonderful. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. And I would say I read it over and over again as well.
Well,
It
that's,
gives me something new every single time. So yeah,
yeah,
more energy in it.
it is really special. Thank you so much, Sarah. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will see you next time.